Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video. So today we're going to be talking about when Artblock hits mid-art piece. And that's how I felt about this piece in particular. So this art piece I really liked, and I went about it in my sort of more stylized painterly way as you're seeing the speed paint on the screen, and I ended up not liking how the painting version turned out, which is fine. You're allowed to not like your art sometimes even after you've spent a long time on it. So I went back to the tried and true strategy that I've been doing for a while, and that is line art. I've really been enjoying line art of recently. Usually, like a few months ago, I would paint digitally paint all of my pieces that I did, but recently I've gotten back into line art digitally, and I've been enjoying it more, so I decided it would probably be best for me to just do line art. So I got the sketch back from the original art piece, and I just did line art, and that was the easiest thing for me to do. So now I'm going to talk about why I didn't necessarily like my more painterly style with this. I had a vision in my mind, and that was to make an art piece of a librarian guy, and he would be just like looking at a bunch of books. And I really liked the sketch for this art piece, and then I put down the base colors and I started rendering. And I got really burnt out after a while, and it's probably because I had maybe been working on an art piece for too long. A lot of times when you don't like your art, you've just been working on it for too long, and you either need to take a break or push through. A lot of things that I hear other artists talk about is the ugly phase of an art piece, where you're in between liking a piece or not liking a piece, even though it's not done yet, and you're like, this doesn't look as I imagined it, and it's not going to until you completely finish it. And so I was in the sort of ugly phase with this art piece here, and I felt like the painting wasn't going well, but I really like how I established the colors. So I wanted to take both of the strengths of the piece, of me doing line art, which is something I've been really comfortable with of recently, and using the colors that I had picked, because I had really liked the colors from the painted piece. So I went about line art in my normal way, just did like flat line art. I did use a pressure sensitivity brush this time. Normally I just line in one continued size for the entire line art, but this time I used like pressure sensitivity to give variation to my line art, and I like it. I do like it. It's different than how I normally do art, which I don't mind. So here you can see me overlaying the colors on the new line art, and I just decided that, you know what, we're still going to go about this piece in the same way, but we're not going to do it in the same way, if that makes sense. So now into colors. As I previously discussed, I liked the colors in the painted piece, so I just decided to use them again. As you can see, my reference opened in the top left corner of the screen of the art piece that I was referencing for the colors. And I wanted to capture the same feel of the painted piece, but I wanted to go about the process a lot cleaner. So using line art and the bucket tool and multiple layers allowed me to be able to streamline the process and perfectly paint everything so that they're not like the white layer isn't with the green layer, and if I accidentally put green on the white layer, I can take it back. Because with my painterly style, I like to use as few layers as possible, just because it's easier, because by the time I merge down all the layers, I don't have like 1,000,001 layers to merge. So when I work with my painterly style, I like to work very simple, but with line art, I love to use a lot of layers, layer effects, things like multiply, add, screen, overlay, things like that. I love to color my line art in a certain way. I love to shade and go crazy, use gradients and blurs and color balance to really find the perfect colors. But with my painterly style, I like to keep everything simple because in my painterly style, it tends to be simpler as the basic explanation for it. But for the line art on this piece, I normally use blue line art. I've really been enjoying using blue line art. In the past, I used to use black as my line art color, but I'm using blue here. And I'm just going about shading the face, choosing the colors as I would like, and freely changing anything that I need to my heart's desire. So the things that I didn't find I did as well in the line art. So as I was talking about earlier with my painterly style and how I like it more simple, compared to the line art, I could have executed the lighting differently and I could have executed it better. Because I allow myself when I do line art the amount of infinite layers, or as many layers as Procreate allows me to do, I could have did the lighting a lot better. I find the lighting on his shirt, which I haven't done yet, but I find the lighting on his shirt, it could have been better. I feel like it doesn't match the overall piece because the lighting of his shirt is very intense. There's a very harsh shadow on his left side, but compared to his hair and his face and probably even his pants, it doesn't seem like that same light source is hitting everywhere. And I kind of imagine the light source from a very bright and strong window from the right side of him. So if the lighting was, I could have executed the lighting better using a multiply layer and then just shading everything at once, so that way one object doesn't look out of place. Another thing I could have done differently with the line art is I could have attempted to shade the face better. Normally I shade faces slightly different when it comes to line art, and I feel like I simplified it a lot in this piece. It could have been a lot more expressive, a lot more blush, shadows, other sorts of things like that, instead of just shading the face like it's a flat 2D object when I could actually give it 3D dimensional depth. Now, in this next part of the voiceover, I'm going to tell you about the tips that can help you not do what I did, or how to avoid the mistakes that I made. One of the things you can do is to thumbnail what you're going to do. A thumbnail in art, it refers to a very small, simplified drawing of what you're going to do. It's not finished, it's not clean most of the time. You can make a very clean thumbnail. Most of the times they're pretty messy for me. And you make this thumbnail and you get the general idea of your character's pose. You can throw in a really quick background and you can put flat colors down to figure out the lighting, shading, and what your color palette is going to be. And I think for this piece it would have really benefited from planning ahead, just because I really like the idea. I really like the background. I'm very happy with the background for this one. But I think just the execution of how my process was directed by my idea should have been more thought out. Another thing that you can do to prevent this in the future is make multiple drafts of said thumbnails. It's like you should always have multiple versions of your idea, because just because the idea in your head seems good doesn't mean that that same idea on paper will make as much sense. Even though your art style may be more cartoony, more realistic, just because you can play around with those proportions doesn't mean that your viewer, whoever sees your art, will understand it in the same way that you do. So make multiple versions of your art. It should show different color palettes, moods, backgrounds. It should show different poses, different ways that you can portray the same action and get it across to your viewer in the same way that you want to. So as I'm putting the final touches on this piece, such as extra lighting, and I think I touch up his glasses in this last part as well, I want to say that even though you may not like your art piece, you should never scrap it. There's never a point in art where you should feel that your art isn't good enough, because your art is always good enough. and you're an amazing artist. So this is why I started over, to show that just because I don't like it doesn't mean that I can't fix it. So I want to thank everyone for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye-bye!